Well, some time ago, I received a schedule informing me that I would be giving the homilies for this particular weekend. And so I began to read ahead and reflect on the section of Luke's gospel accounts that we have been reading for the past few weeks. The story of the Good Samaritan, Martha and Mary, how do we pray, and of course, today's gospel about material wealth and possessions and all. And when it came to this idea of greed and the proper use of material possessions and the like, I remembered this book that I found about 20 years ago. It was written by a religious, entitled The Holy Use of Money. I found some ideas in this book that were personally intriguing for me. And I used these ideas for various Advent homilies, a time when there's such a frenzy about Christmas shopping and advertisements and Christmas festivities and the like. Now, I know this is August 1st, and I know it's not liturgically correct to talk about Advent or Christmas, but we are surrounded by this massive arts and crafts sales and the like, and we do have this gospel on money. So I know where I'm going with this, trust me. Now, the author of this book asked this very piercing question. He said, how is it that when we have so much, we are so anxious and worried about not having enough? And the author goes on to say, with this kind of greed and hoarding and emphasis on possessions and the like, we have really set up our young people for a certain kind of identity crisis. Because we live in a society that judges human worth in terms of productivity rather than by the quality of one's character. And so because of this society we live in, this emphasis on hoarding and accumulating and all, young people today conclude about themselves and ask themselves this question: I am what I have, and what I have is not enough. And then we have the problems and everything that goes with it. You know, we have reduced life to lifestyle. And boy, do our young people suffer because of that. Parenthetically, I remember using these ideas way back in December of 1990. And for some reason, there was a special frenzy during that Advent time. I can remember almost people were out of control shopping. That's when they were going, at least that's when I first remember people going to the stores, on Black Friday. So they would be the first ones in the store, like 5:30 in the morning, whatever. And someone mentioned that people were so desperate, they were so desperate to feel and to fill the emptiness they were feeling. I thought it was an interesting insight. And within the month of all that frenzy, there was the bombing of Baghdad. There was Desert Storm and all that carnage in Kuwait. I know, you know that there's a connection. All this just wasn't an accident. It just wasn't coincidental. But that was past history. In today's gospel, Jesus continues to make his journey to Jerusalem. And in the crowd, someone asked Jesus to intervene so that his elder brother will give him his rightful share of his inheritance, which would be land, because in the time of Jesus, a person's identity was connected, again, with how much they owned. Land was how they were, what their status was, and so on. And Jesus' response, like it was in the questions about who is my neighbor, how do we pray, principles of hospitality, is a teaching of general significance in the light of what has been said to him. A teaching worthwhile for all that functions like another step in Christian catechesis. Jesus makes the point, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist in possessions. And then he goes on to the parable of this man of exceptional material success. He has it all. He wants to build bigger barns, bigger bins. He certainly has grown rich for himself. But the parable tells us, but he dies the very night after making all these great plans. And of course, the main point of the parable is, in all things we have to consider the end. We have to consider eternity. The happy end of human life doesn't depend on wealth, and it's foolish to hoard it. Very clear. We will be stripped of all material goods. Consequently, each of us must act with respect to what will remain after our death. Whether we owned much or little, whether we dwelt in opulence or squalor, which can only mean what will last is the quality of our work and the use we will have made of our goods. The point of the parable. Now, there's an ancient mosque in India, and surprisingly, it has this inscription on it attributed to Jesus. This is a mosque now. And the inscription reads, and the words are attributed to Jesus, that the world is merely a bridge, and you are to pass over it and not build your dwelling on it. And then today's author of the first reading, Koheleth, realized that the things most human beings value did not survive beyond the grave. He used this word vanity, a Greek word that means breath, it means vapor, which, like a sigh, once it has been sighed, it is gone forever. Wealth, material possessions, that's what he was talking about. In the end, it is not what we produce that will travel across death's threshold, but the personal qualities and character we have cultivated are what will endure. Excuse me while I rearrange my notes here. Last night, I was having a hard time with this air conditioner, and I had to make a lot of saves. They were blowing out here. And one more illustration. A playwright who lived at the turn of the 20th century took the ideas of Koheleth in the first reading and then took the wisdom of the Luke and Jesus in the gospel and aptly summed up the worth of wealth for human beings by writing this: money may be the husk of many things, but not the kernel. It brings you food, but not appetite, medicine, but not health. Money brings you acquaintances, but not friends, servants, but not faithfulness, days of joy, but not peace and happiness. You know, right after Easter, I had the privilege of making this retreat. It was given by a nationally known figure, and this priest had such a different approach to things, and the whole retreat was based on what he saw as the signs of hope in our world today, in our society today. You know, given the bad news, the wars, the oil leakage, the domestic violence, and on and on. And one of the signs of hope for him in our world today was young people. He said that energizes him. It gives him a lot of hope. And he's talking about junior high, senior high, college students. And he said the way they give evidence to their commitment to justice and peace, their concern for environmental issues, their search for a relevant spirituality. You know, maybe they don't have the faith practice and the ideas that we had, but he finds great hope in the way that these young people are beginning to put their faith into practice. They're involved in the world. And, you know, I'm really taken by the neighborhood section of Thursday morning's Post-Standard. And in there, you always find what our young people are up to, especially during the school year. And just a few things I worked with young people on, like the daffodil sale, a hunger walk, of course, the White Ribbon Campaign, Earth Day cleanup, and all the various walks and runs, American Cancer Society, Autism Awareness Week. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But they're in groves, they're in flocks, involved in all these wonderful activities. And they've taught us how much more is possible in the service of human life. And so what this retreat master was saying, that, you know, we have to be people of prayer. We have to go inside. We have to find God in the marketplace. You know, we have to be people of reflection and introspection. We have to look in the mirror every day and see ourselves as God sees us and make the necessary conversion, renewal, and so on. But he says our young people are teaching us how to put our faith into practice, how to bring our faith to the marketplace, how to immerse ourselves in the world. In other words, he's saying they are teaching us how to take our mirrors and turn them into windows. Take our mirrors and turn them into windows. We can see the other side of the mirror. Jesus spoke to this matter by saying, love your neighbor as yourself. Yes, love yourself, but don't leave your neighbor or world out of your life. The gospel says, grow rich in the sight of God. Grow rich in the sight of God. How do we do that? Our young people have given us one very simple, concrete way of growing rich in the sight of God, taking our mirrors and turn them into windows. Grow rich in the sight of God.